Life has a humorous way of revealing our true selves. I would have laughed incredulously 2 years ago if you had told me that I would be where I am now, prosperous, self-sufficient, and totally cut off from my family. It's quite a tale to tell, yet here I am. My name is Ava Matthews, and I was a manager at the mid-sized trading business TradeSync Solutions at the time. Like many women in their late 20s, I was beginning to feel pressured by society to settle down, even if I was confident at my profession. I had a small group of close pals and a respectable profession. My parents, with whom I was then close, and my elder brother Marcus, who was 2 years older than me, and had always been the family's golden child, made up my family. Growing up in the Boston suburbs, Marcus and I had maintained what I believed to be a strong bond despite the usual sibling rivalry. I was more concerned with advancing my job and creating a secure future, but he was always the more gregarious one and the life of the party. I had come to accept the fact that our parents showered him with affection as the norm in our household. I first met Tom at Jenny's housewarming party, which is one of those get-togethers when friends of friends socialize over cheap wine and store-bought cheese. With dark brown hair that fell slightly over his eyes, and a smile that gave everyone the impression that they were in on a secret joke, he was charming in that subtle manner that comes up unexpectedly. We began discussing how much we both like listening to true crime podcasts, and before I knew it, 3 hours had gone by. After exchanging numbers that evening, we began messaging every day a week later. We spoke on our first date at a little downtown Italian restaurant until the waiters began glaring at us about closing time. Before I knew it, we were spending every weekend together after the second date developed into a third and then a fourth. Compared to the other men I had dated, Tom was unique. He appeared more responsible and future-oriented. We began discussing moving in together after 6 months of dating. We both valued conserving money and creating a secure future, and he held a respectable position in software sales. Tom took me to the same Italian restaurant where we had our first date on our 1-year anniversary. During dinner, he appeared anxious, fumbling with his water glass and checking his phone more frequently than normal. He knelt down to our table and took out a tiny velvet package just as our dessert arrived. I replied sure, my heart thumping so loudly that I could not hear myself. The ring was exactly what I would have picked for myself. It was understated yet sophisticated. I was feeling like I was soaring on air as other diners praised and cheered us. Tom and I met my family the weekend after our engagement. I felt anxious. Marcus had a way of either making people feel instantly welcome or absolutely uncomfortable, and my folks could be fairly judgmental. With him, there was often no middle ground. Before we even made it to the porch, Mom opened the door. She pulled me into an embrace and said, "There's my baby girl," before turning to face Tom. "And you must be the man who's stolen our Ava's heart." Marcus and Dad were watching a football game in the living room. Marcus quickly leaped to his feet and held out his hand to Tom. He smiled and gave Tom a hard handshake, saying, "So you're the guy my little sister won't shut up about." Tom said, "And you must be the infamous Marcus," with panache. "Jill's told me quite a bit about you, too." I had a better afternoon than I had anticipated. Despite my objections, Mom insisted on displaying Tom all of my embarrassing childhood pictures, while Dad interrogated him about his career and future goals. I was surprised to see that Tom and Marcus clicked right away, especially once they found out they were fans of the same football team. At last, Marcus put his arm over Tom's shoulders as they were eating dinner. He pointed to me with his fork and said, "I've been dreaming of having a brother forever, but all I got was this troublemaker." I gave him a tongue out. Please, you wouldn't have survived without me covering for you all those times in high school." He chuckled, and everyone at the table laughed too. "True that, sis," he said. The months that followed were filled with hectic wedding planning. Dad was in charge of negotiating the location, Mom was in care of the floral arrangements, and Marcus designated himself Tom's unofficial bachelor party coordinator and drinking companion. They began getting together frequently for drinks, and I must admit that I was ecstatic to witness my brother and fiancé grow so close. The actual wedding was straightforward yet ideal. With mason jars full of wildflowers on the tables and fairy lights draped around the trees, we hosted it in my parents' garden. I genuinely thought this was my happily ever after when Tom kissed me after saying "I do," and our closest friends and family were present. After the honeymoon, we moved into Tom's rental apartment, a comfortable one-bedroom in a good area. We began saving for our own home at that point. In order to determine who could save more for the down payment, we made it into a friendly competition in which we each deposited money into different accounts. It was enjoyable at first. We would prepare elaborate meals together to avoid dining at pricey restaurants, enjoy movie evenings at home rather than going out, and check takeaway menus to get the greatest bargains. However, Tom became restless after 3 months. One evening, he grumbled, "We're already becoming an old married couple. We're too young to live like hermits." I tried to remind him of our goals, showing him how much we'd already saved. "Think about it," I said. "In a few years, we could have our own place. Wouldn't that be worth it?" He would nod and seem to understand, but then Marcus started inviting him out for guys' nights on Fridays. At first, I was worried, but Marcus assured me he'd keep an eye on Tom. I believed him. After all, who better to trust with my husband than my own brother? And Tom would always come home in a better mood after these outings, more affectionate and understanding about our saving goals. So I learned to accept it, even look forward to having some quiet time to myself on Friday nights. A year into our marriage, I was feeling pretty good about our progress. My savings account was growing steadily. I had managed to put away just over $30,000. I had no idea how much Tom had saved. We'd kept that part of our competition private, but I hoped he was doing as well as I was. It was a Thursday evening when Tom dropped his fishing trip bombshell. "Marcus and I are thinking of going fishing this weekend," he announced over dinner. His friend has a cabin up at Lake Webster. I looked up from my pasta, surprised. "This weekend? I thought we could finally have some time together. You've been working late all week." "Come on, Gil," he grinned, his eyes lighting up like a kid at Christmas. "I haven't been fishing in ages. It'll be fun. Just us guys, some beers, maybe catch something worth bragging about." As if on cue, there was a knock at our door. Marcus first in. He had a key for emergencies, though I was starting to question the wisdom of that decision. "Little sister," he bellowed, spreading his arms wide. "Please, please, pretty please let your wonderful husband come fishing with me this weekend." He dropped to his knees dramatically in front of my chair. "I promise I'll take good care of him. No wild parties, no crazy stunts. Just 2 guys trying to outsmart some fish." I couldn't help but laugh. "Get up, you idiot. You're 40, not 4. "Not until you say yes," he insisted, giving me his best puppy dog eyes, the same ones that had gotten him out of trouble countless times when we were kids. They left early Saturday morning, loading the car with fishing gear and a cooler full of supplies. I spent most of that morning cleaning the apartment, trying to keep busy, but by afternoon I was climbing the walls with boredom. That's when I had an idea. Marcus's girlfriend, Sarah, and I had become pretty good friends over the past year. She was smart, funny, and seemed to genuinely make my brother happy. Maybe she'd want to go shopping. I could justify a small splurge from my savings for some girl time. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey Sarah, it's Eva. Listen, the boys are off fishing, so I was wondering if you'd like to go shopping. Maybe grab some lunch?" There was a pause on the other end. "Fishing? Marcus isn't fishing. He's here with me at my place. We're getting ready to drive to my parents' house for the weekend. He's actually in the next room right now." My blood ran cold. In the background, I could hear my brother's voice. "Who's that, babe?" "Just my friend Lucy," Sarah replied, her voice slightly muffled. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, as the implications of what I'd just learned began to sink in. My husband and my brother had lied to me. But why? Where was Tom really going? "Sarah," I whispered, "please don't tell Marcus about this call. I need to figure something out. Just please." Of course, she promised. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. I'll call you later." I hung up before my voice could break. For several minutes, I just sat there on our bed, my mind racing. Tom's laptop was on his desk, humming quietly in sleep mode. We had always been open with each other about passwords, or at least I thought we had been. His was simple, his mother's birth date. I teased him about being too predictable, about needing better security. Now that predictability was working in my favor. My hands trembled as I opened the laptop and typed in the password. His social media accounts were still logged in. He'd always been careless about that too. And then I saw her name, Rebecca. The message thread was extensive, going back months. With each scroll, each message I read, I felt my world crumbling around me. "Can't wait to see you this weekend, baby. Your wife really bought the fishing story." "Yeah, my brother-in-law's got my back. He's a legend, huh? She's so clueless. Must be nice having such a trusting wife." They had been meeting almost every other weekend. Hotels, her apartment, even weekend trips disguised as work conferences or guys' outings. The level of detail, the casual cruelty of their jokes about me, the intimate photographs they shared, it made me physically sick. But worse was yet to come. There was a separate message thread with Marcus, my brother, protector, best friend since childhood. "She totally bought it again," Tom had written just yesterday. "Your sister's as gullible as ever, huh?" Marcus replied. "Remember when we were kids, and I convinced her that ice cream grew on trees. She's never gotten any smarter. You're the best wingman ever, bro." Rebecca says hi, BT Bao. Says thanks for covering with Sarah, too. Anytime. What are brothers for? Besides, this is way more fun than actually hanging out with my boring sister. Hit me up when you're back. Those strip club girls from last month have been asking about us. The messages went on, plans for their guys' nights, detailed accounts of their visits to strip clubs, discussions about various women they'd met. Not only had Marcus been covering for Tom's affair, but he'd been actively participating in a lifestyle that would destroy Sarah if she ever found out. I read about how they laughed at my careful saving plans, how they mocked my dreams of owning a home. They joked about how I'd probably end up paying for everything anyway, since I was such a sucker. My own brother had called me stupid, naive, boring. The same brother who used to chase away bullies when we were kids. The same brother who'd held my hand at Dad's surgery 2 years ago. The same brother who'd cried at my wedding. The room was spinning. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my whole body shaking. When I could finally stand again, I went back to the laptop. With methodical precision, I forwarded every damning message to my email account, every cruel joke, every planned deception, every piece of evidence of their betrayal. I spent Saturday night in a strange, calm state of rage, methodically researching apartments and making calls. By Sunday morning, I had secured a furnished one-bedroom across town, paid the deposit from my savings, and signed the lease electronically. Tom came home around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, his face flushed and happy. He was carrying a convenience store bag with a few frozen fish inside, a pathetic attempt at maintaining his lie. "Hey, babe," he called out cheerfully. "You should have seen the ones that got away." I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me. Without a word, I turned it toward him. On the screen was his conversation with Rebecca, including their plans for this weekend's rendezvous. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "I actually expected you to at least try to apologize." He straightened up, his expression hardening. "Why should I? You want to know the truth. You've become boring, Hava. All you care about is saving money and planning for the future. Where's the fun? Where's the excitement? Even Marcus says." "Even Marcus says what?" I cut him off, my tone sharp. "That I'm stupid, naive. That I'm such a sucker for believing my husband and brother would actually be honest with me." "Look," he sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Maybe this is for the best. We're clearly wanting different things." "You're right," I interrupted again, standing up. "I wanted a marriage. You wanted a convenience." I grabbed my pre-packed suitcase from behind the couch. "I'm filing for divorce. Don't worry about your precious savings. You can keep them, though I doubt there's much left after all those strip clubs and hotel rooms." I spent the afternoon moving my essential belongings to the new apartment. It was small but clean, with basic furniture and a view of a small park. My savings, the money I'd been setting aside for our future, would now be my fresh start fund. That evening, I drove to my parents' house for their regular Sunday dinner. I knew Marcus and Sarah would be there. They always were after their weekends with their parents. Mom was setting the table when I arrived. Dad was in his usual armchair, and Marcus and Sarah were on the couch, looking like the perfect couple. "There's my girl," Mom smiled. "We missed you at lunch yesterday." "Yeah, about that." I looked directly at Marcus. "How was your weekend covering for Tom's affair, Marcus?" The room went dead silent. Marcus's face turned white. "What are you talking about?" Dad demanded. I pulled out my phone and started reading the messages aloud. The crude jokes, the strip club visits, the careful coordination of lies. With each word, Sarah's face grew more horrified. When I finished, she turned to Marcus, tears in her eyes. "Is this true?" He couldn't even look at her. "Sarah, please." The sound of her palm connecting with his cheek echoed through the room. "We're done," she choked out. "Everything, we're done." She grabbed her purse and ran out the front door, slamming it behind her. After Sarah left, I expected my parents to be shocked, angry, or disappointed in Marcus. Instead, my mother burst into tears, not for me, but for him. "Look what you've done," she cried, rushing to comfort Marcus, who sat with his head in his hands. "Your brother's relationship is ruined." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? Did you hear anything I just said about how he helped Tom cheat on me? About the strip clubs? The lies?" "Oh, Ava," Dad sighed, shaking his head. "Boys will be boys. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Tom was just blowing off some steam, and Marcus was being a good friend." A good friend? I felt like I'd stepped into a bizarre parallel universe. He helped my husband cheat on me. He lied to my face for months. "And now you've destroyed his relationship with Sarah," Mom snapped. "Was that really necessary? Couldn't you have handled this privately?" Marcus lifted his head, his eyes red but dry. Yeah, sis, real classy move. You just had to drag everyone into this, didn't you? I looked between them, my mother stroking Marcus's hair like he was a wounded child, my father giving me that disappointed look he perfected over the years, and my brother playing the victim as he had his entire life. In that moment, something inside me broke, or formed, harder and colder than before. You know what? You're right, I said, my voice icy. I should have known better than to expect any of you to take my side. Marcus has always been the golden child, hasn't he? He can do no wrong. Well, congratulations, you can have each other. I walked out of my childhood home that night and didn't look back. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly quick. Tom tried to claim half of my savings, arguing they were marital assets. We agreed to save together, he said in mediation, trying to sound reasonable. It was our joint plan for our future. Even his parents, who'd stayed out of the whole mess, told him to drop it. Don't make yourself look worse than you already do, his mother had said sharply. He withdrew his claim the next day. From mutual friends, I heard that Marcus and Tom were still thick as thieves. Without Sarah to keep him in check, Marcus had fully embraced the single life again. They were regulars at every bar and club in town, living it up like college freshmen instead of grown men in their 30s. Their social media was full of party pictures, groups of girls, and drunken adventures. Not that I looked often, but word got back to me. Funny how clarity comes when you strip everything away. Without the distractions of a failing marriage or family drama, I could finally focus on what I wanted. And what I wanted was to succeed. I volunteered for every challenging project that came through TradeSync Solutions, the ones other managers avoided because they were too complex, too risky, or too time-consuming. I took them all. I stayed late, came in early, and poured every ounce of my energy into making each project exceptional. My first major success came with the Anderson account, a client everyone had written off as impossible to please. I restructured their entire trading framework, created new reporting systems, and increased their profitability by 47% in the first quarter. The CEO himself called to praise my work. That success led to bigger projects. I developed a new risk assessment protocol that saved the company millions in potential losses. I streamlined our international trading processes, reducing transaction times by 60%. Each victory built upon the last, and people started to notice. Ava, my boss, called me in one day. How would you feel about joining the management team? We need someone with your vision. The promotion came with a corner office and a salary that made my eyes water. I celebrated by buying myself a sleek black Mercedes. Not the most practical choice, perhaps, but I wanted something that would remind me every day of how far I'd come. 6 months later, I closed on my dream apartment, a 2-bedroom condo in the city's most desirable neighborhood. The mortgage payments were steep, but I could handle them. Every night, I would stand on my balcony, overlooking the city lights, feeling proud of what I'd built on my own. I hadn't spoken to my family in all this time. No birthday calls, no holiday gatherings, no Sunday dinners. Sometimes I'd see their numbers on my phone, but I never answered. The wounds were still too raw, the betrayal too fresh. Then on a random Tuesday evening, as I was reviewing quarterly projections in my new home office, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and few people had my new address. Through the security camera, I saw my parents standing there, looking older and more tired than I remembered. For a moment, I considered not answering, but something in their posture, the way Mom kept wringing her hands, how Dad's shoulders slumped, made me buzz them up. Ava, Mom started as soon as I opened the door. You look wonderful. What do you want? My voice was cool, professional, the same tone I used in difficult client meetings. They exchanged glances before Dad spoke. It's about Marcus. We, we were wrong about him, about everything. They told me how Marcus had spiraled after Sarah left him, how his friendship with Tom had turned toxic, endless partying, drinking, hooking up with random women. How he'd started showing up to work hungover, then drunk, 2 formal warnings, one for being intoxicated at his desk, another for no-showing an important client meeting. He's been fired, Mom said, her voice breaking. His references are terrible. No one will hire him. He's living in his old room now. He has no money, no prospects. What exactly do you expect me to do about this? I asked, leaning against my kitchen counter. The marble was cool against my palms, a small luxury I'd chosen for myself when renovating. My inquiry caused Mom's eyes to light up with hope. We know you're in management at such a prominent firm now, my love. We were considering. Dad went on, perhaps you could get him a job. Something appropriate that pays well. It doesn't need to be particularly difficult. Before I could stop myself, I burst out laughing. Let me be clear. You want me to jeopardize my hard-earned professional reputation in order to offer the brother who deceived me a lucrative position. The same brother who contributed to the breakdown of my marriage. Mom begged, Ava, that was 2 years ago. People make mistakes. Mistakes. I stood up straight and spoke in a deadly calm. Forgetting to get milk is a mistake. Being late for supper is an error. Marcus's actions were a decision. Actually, there are several options. He decided to act as a stand-in for Tom. He decided to make fun of me behind my back. His bond with my unfaithful ex-husband was more important to him than his own sister. He's family. Dad protested, seeming flushed. Family forgives. I fired back. Really? When I needed this familial loyalty, where was it? You sided with him when I presented you the evidence of what they had done to me. Next, do you recall? You're being unreasonable, Mom yelled. We'll take away your inheritance if you don't assist your brother. Marcus will get everything. I surveyed my apartment, taking in the artwork I had selected, the furnishings I had purchased, and the life I had created on my own without their assistance. Then I laughed once again, really. There is nothing I need or desire from you. It's probably time for you to go. I approached and held open the door. I have an early meeting tomorrow. They attempted to continue their argument, but I just waited with the door open. At last they departed, Dad grumbling about unappreciative daughters, Mom crying. A burden was lifted from my shoulders when I shut the door after them. I observed from the window as they climbed into their ancient Volvo, which they had owned since my undergraduate days. I pictured Marcus in his bedroom from boyhood, perhaps suffering from another hangover, waiting for someone else to fix his issues, as they always had. When I last heard from him, he was working odd jobs around the area, like painting fences or mowing lawns, anything to make ends meet while drinking. Eventually, Tom had had enough of going out with a buddy who was broke and had moved on. As they say, karma is a patient guest. I went out onto my balcony after pouring myself a glass of wine, a costly Bordeaux that I had purchased to commemorate my most recent successful endeavor. The lights in the city glowed like stars that had fallen to the ground as it spread out in front of me. My Mercedes, a representation of all I'd accomplished on my own, was parked in its designated space below. Although some may accuse me of being heartless for abandoning my family, family is more than just blood. It all comes down to loyalty, respect, and trust. People that genuinely care about you don't try to control you, betray you, or make fun of you. They cheer you on, encourage you, and acknowledge your accomplishments.